Shut up and sit down.
And so here he is, Wes Hodkiewicz. We know how to say Wes and spell Wes. Hodkiewicz, different story, at Wes Hod on Twitter. Wes with Packers.com, the digital reporter. Good to see you, buddy. Thanks for being here.
Nice to see you, too, and I appreciate you guys having me on a who's who of Wisconsin sports personalities. I got to check out Wayne's episode, too, before, so I'm excited to join you.
To the beginning, Wes Hodkiewicz, Howard, Wisconsin, Green Bay, Wisconsin. From there to Packers.com, man. I mean, like, you and I have talked about this in the past. We've known each other well over a decade now. That's a hell of a run. You're a Green Bay kid going to work every day at Lambeau Field. Tell us about that.
Yeah, pretty nuts, man. I was blessed and fortunate enough after I graduated from Bayport in 2006 that I got linked up with Mike Vandermoss in the Green Bay Press-Gazette. That's later that summer. So I was able to go in there and worked as a sports clerk for 4 years in that capacity, and then was lucky enough to become a reporter over there. So I actually worked for the Press-Gazette for 10 years before these guys in April of 16 actually brought me on board. So yeah, it's for a kid from here, and obviously, John's the gold standard for that, but to be able to work in your market. And I know so many people in the journalism field, so many reporters that have had to go to all different corners of the United States to make their, childhood dream a reality. The fact I've been able to do it within Brown County the entire time has been pretty emotional, but yeah, it's been a great run. And certainly now we got another playoff run among us and seeing where this thing takes this team.
You mean like if you have to go to Oklahoma or Arizona and live in Connecticut? Listen, it's people like you that get me yelled at by my mom all the time. Well, Wes found a job at home. I don't know why you can't, John. Wes is right there. He makes it home all the time. Like, yeah, you put all kinds of it's just, we should be natural enemies, but we're not. We are into the playoff run. Finally, we're here. How the hell did that happen? Because I don't know if you remember, this was in the paper over the summer. Aaron Rodgers wasn't going to play. He was going to be a Bronco or something. Jordan Love was unprepared. It was going to be disaster, and we avoided that disaster. But then we had some COVID and immunity. Like, it is the most amazing thing to somehow end up exactly where we were a year ago. We got 13 wins, and they're the number one seed, despite all this other stuff. As you were going through this over the months, how did we get here?
Yeah, I think, well, first and foremost, the story that I always told, and I remember talking with Trevor about this too a little bit during the summer, as much of the outside narrative was about what was going to happen with Aaron Rodgers. Where is he going to stay? Is he going to go? Is he not going to come back? We're not sure. I, at the end of the day, I always kind of believed that training camp was going to become the deadline. And once we got there, I always felt relatively confident that Rodgers would report for that. And honestly, since that domino fell, it's just been all systems go, everything moving forward. And in the Packers case, it was a really crazy 8 months. But once I think Rodgers understood what this team was capable of in the locker room that was back. And I think he was with that the entire time. He knows Mercedes Lewis, what Sadie's has riding on this season. He understands the amount of guys that are going to be free agents after this year. He knows that they've been building up to this moment, and he's really in lockstep with that. So, and I think throughout the course of the year, it's only gotten better. The guy I always continue to single out, though, is Matt LaFleur, because he's a guy that in a lot of cases doesn't get enough, in my opinion, respect for the job he's done here over the last 3 years. NFL Coach of the Year, a lot of times, guys, it is about, sort of the flavor of the month. Who had the biggest turnaround? LaFleur's not asking for any bouquets of roses or anything like that, but for him to keep this team together, keep their kind of eyes set on what the ultimate goal was, regardless of whether or not Rodgers was here during the summer, regardless of the injuries that happened during the season, it is a job well done by him as well as the rest of this team in that locker room to be able to put themselves back in a position to win a championship now. It's crazy to go back to back as the number one seed in the NFC. That is not easy to do, and yet here the Packers are.
When all of that stuff, Wes, happens on the field and off the field, and there's so much opinion and negative news and the negative talk and is he or isn't he and immunized or vaccinated and all this stuff, at the end of the day, your paycheck gets signed by the same guy that signs his paycheck.
True.
How do you report on that in-house and still be relevant yet different than everybody else gets to report on it? That's got to be awkward.
Yeah, the one thing I've really enjoyed, because I got to do that side of it too when I was at the Press Gazette. I mean, whether it was guys off the field situations, arrests that, I was in that racket. So the one thing I remember myself and my colleague, Mike Spoff, we really talked about is, okay, we'll focus on what's in front of us and who's saying what. And that's the number one thing in terms of my position. It's like, we're not purposely going to sit there and try to deceive people or misdirect things or make things seem to be something that maybe they really aren't. We're just going to let people speak for what they say. And, one of the things was when Rodgers addressed this stuff, I think a lot of our stories, if you go back and look at it, were basically around the headlines of this is what Aaron Rodgers is saying. This is what Matt LaFleur is saying. This is what the organization is saying. And then trying to move forward from that. The one area where maybe we, kind of deviate a little bit from is, we're not sitting here discussing it in terms of like our opinions on it or how is it going to, go this way? Because there's all different types of Packer fans. And we try to appeal to the masses and being able to give people a place that they can come to enjoy their team, because it isn't just the United States. I mean, one of the things we're very blessed with is it's all around the world. We got readers. So we had the comment section. We got different people that, our Q&As that they can say whatever their opinion is. But, us as we're trying to keep it somewhat focused on, this team and where things are at and just kind of saying where these people are coming from. And beyond that, people can kind of, make up their minds.
Yeah.
Listen, as someone who is, hardcore journalism, doesn't work for a team, even though I work for a company that, heavily invested in the SEC and heavily invested in the college football playoff and all these other things, right? So there's always tentacles. I do think Jim Lair, who Trevor, another great Missouri guy, but he always used to say there is room in every newscast. And I think, for the terms of this discussion, I say that there's room for news and opinion, and there is new for comments. Yeah. But he said, you just need to clearly define those. And that's where people get in trouble. And that's where I think sometimes we get in trouble. Like the reason Stephen A. Smith and everybody works on Get Up or Get Face Talk or whatever it's called, that show. It's not Get Up. It's the other one. What's it called? First Take. The reason that works is because I know when I go there, I'm clearly getting opinion.
Yep.
So I don't get it confused. If I was to do that same thing on SportsCenter, then it's out of place. So at least when I read what's on Packers.com, I don't necessarily think it's all through a green and gold lens, but at least I do know here, this is from the Green Bay Packer website. And so I think that helps. I don't know if you feel that way, Wes, but I think that's so, since it's clearly delineated, it's easier to go through that. What I want to know is, do you ever go, wait, I work for you people. How can I not get access to that dude? Like, that's ridiculous. I had a great friend who worked for the Oklahoma City Thunder, and that was her thing. I'm like, wait, I'm working for you. Why can't I talk to Kevin Durant today?
Yeah, that's the difficulty with the age of COVID too, because when, my first 4 years here, it was a lot, for example, I'll give you a quick story. Today, I actually set up a story with Mercedes Lewis. I'm actually doing a story on him next week, and we did it through Zoom. I mean, I think Mercedes is probably about maybe 100 yards from where I was sitting, but that's just the life we're living right now. That is probably the part that that really hurts the most, because I miss being able to just kind of go down in the locker room and build those relationships, because we're all in our different tiers, and I'm currently not in one. Before, I was tested every single day like a lot of the other media. And we've kind of had to make that type of shift. And yeah, it's the difficult thing, and where you have days where I really do miss that aspect of it, because there's some great relationships and trust that I think has been built with a number of different players in that regard. And we all kind of had to adjust to it. But one thing that's been cool about the Packers is they, for the most part, they really have done a great job. And now this day and age of trying to facilitate some of those things, and understanding that, when I came over from the Press Gazette to work here, my goal was to take what I felt like I did well at the Press Gazette and just make it fit for Packers.com. Allow give players faces instead of just face masks, and kind of be able to bring their stories out. And that's something I really enjoy doing. It just stinks that, obviously, like anything, it's had to be curtailed somewhat because of the current situation we find ourselves in.
I think that's fascinating, Wes, that you're trying to give them a face and not just the face mask, because that's kind of our MO here on Inside Wisconsin. It's about the people and the stories and the patriotism, and not what they did, but who they are. Is there a favorite player or story that you've been able to bring to life thus far that's outside of the X's and O's that you're like, damn, I want people to know more about this guy or that guy or this family, or what is that?
Yeah, for me, it was back in 19, right before we started the whole pandemic. There was a practice squad player by the name of Mitchell Henry. And it's the story that I think I could probably work for another 30 years. And I don't know if I'll ever have one that really was as important to me as that. Mitchell was just your typical, Western Kentucky undrafted free agent trying to make the roster, and spent a couple years on the practice squad. Actually ended up getting claimed when he got cut the second time around, got claimed by the Denver Broncos, spent some time there, and eventually worked his way back. Unfortunately, he ended up having a very rare form of cancer that got diagnosed while he was going through one of his physicals. I believe it was with the Baltimore Ravens. It's been a little bit since I worked on the story. But long story short, I made a bet with him. He's a cat fisherman. And during his first original run, when he was a UFA in 15, I made just a tongue-in-cheek bet. I was like, well, if you end up making the 53, I'll go down to your hometown just outside of Louisville, and I'll do a story on catfishing. And unfortunately, Mitchell ended up passing away in 2017, 24 years old. And I wrote in our Insider Inbox Q&A, a column that we write every day. And I just recounted that story because someone had basically asked me if there was a story I ever regretted not doing. And I said it was that one. I wish I would have had that opportunity. Well, his dad, Terry, ended up finding what I wrote out, and sent us a letter saying that he hasn't been catfishing since Mitchell passed, but it would be his honor to bring me along with him. So right after the draft in 2019, the Packers drafted Rashawn Gary, Darnell Savage. Right after everything wrapped up, myself and my colleague, Mike Vanderschnick, we got on a plane and went down to Kentucky the day after and spent 3 days down there. Ended up going catfishing with Terry and his son, Ben, Mitchell's brother, and then also had a chance to spend some time with his wife, his widow, and the whole thing together. I wrote a story in June of 19, and also did an electronic, like a whole package and everything. And that, to me, Trevor, that's probably the story. Like, I had one of my best friends in the business, Michael Cohen, actually said to me afterwards, he's like, the reason that one was so good is because that could have fit in any newspaper, could have fit in any website, didn't have to be from a team website. And that one's always meant quite a bit to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Wow.
As Wright Thompson always says, there's two kinds of stories. There's pearls that have to be cultured and kind of grown. And then there are diamonds where you just want to buff them and just get out of the way.
Yeah.
And I have no doubt that you did that with great aplomb, but you get that and you just think sometimes the weight of that, I don't mean to make this a big, heavy journalism thing, but right. Sometimes the weight of that is really difficult because you get attached to it. And like, I so want to get this right. And then in the end I think, if I just write it down, what happened, it has all the weight it needs. It's
absolutely
that kind of story.
You just try to stay out of the way with it. And that's the biggest thing that I think I've tried to bring in with my writing, whether it was at the Press Gazette or whether it's now. It's allowing players and individuals to tell their side of things and not make the story about me, but make it about them. And I think, in my estimation and in my opinion, the best journalists have been around, the best writers, the best reporters are the people that can do that. And that's just, it's on the heavier side, Trevor. I have some fun stories too that happened over the years that I enjoyed and were on the lighter side, but that's one of them that I think when you think about what you do, and I'm sure John feels the same way in his field, when you think about why you do these things, what gets you up in the morning beyond the paycheck, beyond anything else, that's what stands out to you. And that's sort of the thing that has been, one of my big takeaways.
It is Wes Hodkiewicz, digital reporter, Packers.com. We're just going to tell everybody you run Packers.com, even if it's not true, because we're just going to roll with that.
I like that. I like that idea.
Good deal. We're back in a minute on Inside Wisconsin.
Inside Wisconsin is brought to you by Baycare Clinic, Cobblestone Creek, the University of Wisconsin-Platteville, Mill Home Supper Club, Festival Foods, Capital Credit Union, North Star Mohican Casino Resort, American Family Insurance, Roll Tech, and by Miller Lite.